Good morning. My name is Greg Walker. I'm Senior Vice President at the College Board, and I'm excited to be on a panel with my esteemed colleagues who I will introduce shortly. First, let's set context. All pathways to opportunity should come with directions. So let's think for a moment. How many of you in this audience have a smartphone? If you have a smartphone, raise your hand. Look at all those hands go up. Another question. How many of you with those smartphones actually use your GPS? Whether it be Waze, whether it be Google, some other, like all these hands are going up. When you're traveling, and we all have experienced this, and you kind of get off track, you will hear these words, recalculating, and you're like, okay, no problem. I just need to course correct, and I will get to my destination. Often, students come to school each and every day with no GPS. You'll ask students, why are you doing this? Because my teacher told me I'm supposed to. What are you doing it for? I don't know. Yale did a study, and there are three things that popped out of a study that really talked about where students were in high school. The three words were bored, stressed, tired. I'm a former elementary school teacher, elementary principal, high school principal, district administrator. All of those experiences, I have seen kids that are like, why are we doing this? Opportunity should come with a GPS. Those of you that are familiar with the College Board know the College Board as the GPS to get to college. And you see that that is the road of the College Board. Today, I want to introduce you to a different College Board that is the GPS to student opportunity, whether that be college, career, whatever that opportunity is for students. And so when we think about those types of things, how is the College Board positioning itself to be a GPS that helps students do more than just go to college? We know that student opportunities are vast, but the road to those opportunities is not just linear. We have conversations with students and we say, you need to go to college. Well, what does that really mean? Is that 2-year? Is that 4-year? Is that a training program? Is that the world of work? There are many pathways for students, and what we should be providing are GPS processes for students to be able to get to the destination that they want for their life. I saw students here at South by Southwest, and I talked to them. And I said to them this. It was really interesting. So we had a booth. Students were there, 4 of them to be exact. And we were talking about a program called Big Future. Big Future at the College Board allows students to plan for college, pay for college, and explore careers. When you think about that, I asked the students, what is it that you want to do with your life? 2 of them said, I don't know. And I said, okay. One said, I think I want to be a nurse. The other said, I think I want to be a veterinarian. I said, do you know if the courses that you are taking are setting you up for that success? And they shook their head no. And I said, Big Future will allow you to actually see what it takes to obtain such a career, what types of jobs are available to you, but also what kind of courses should you take, and you can hear from people that are actually doing those jobs. Here's where it got interesting. I go talk to another colleague, and now there's about 12 students there because they went away and they came back with their friends and said, you got to hear what these people are talking about. We had these cards that talked about, again, explore careers, plan for college, pay for college. They were taking these slips because it was relevant to them. This might help me get to the destination that I want to get to. And so at the College Board, we're really working to make sure that we meet students where they are and we provide opportunities for them. It's another area of work that we are also engaged in. It's a program called Career Kickstart. And Career Kickstart is really allowing students to think about the world that they will work in. And so if we think about an area, for example, of cybersecurity, we know that there are lots of things that connect to cybersecurity. The jobs with the course that we are on today, many of them will be unfilled. But if we provide students an opportunity to know what is out there, they can actually begin to think about future opportunities for themselves. So Career Kickstart allows students to get real-world application, be able to connect, learn from experts, and begin to own their future in in-demand jobs that are out there. 57% of students believe that there's great opportunity, but most students think high school is all that I need to do to be successful. 70% of jobs are going to require some form of post-secondary education, as I shared. So the panelists that are here with me today, we're going to talk about those GPS movements that need to occur. How can we continue to inform students? How can we help students? How can we make sure that the navigation system for our students is clear? And one of the things that's so important is this. It's not what I do like. Maybe it's also to find out what I don't like. Because if I can find out what my passion is, and we can connect the skills to the values in the interest of students, we can help them chart a bright future. The College Board's focus is to clear a path for all students to own their future. And so today I have with me three wonderful folks, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and then I'm going to also ask them an interesting question. As we think about work, think about what we do. I'm the senior vice president at the College Board, but I was also a pizza delivery boy, knocking on doors, afraid that a dog might bark. But it helped me think about talking to people that I didn't know, doing different things. And so with me, I have Dr. Scott Solberg, who is the Vice President of Research, Coalition for Career Development Center. I have Sylvia Wood, Cyber Teacher of the Year at St. Dominic Savio High School in Austin, Texas here. And Justina Salah, Managing Director of Innovation Solutions, Burning Glass Institute. So we're gonna go backwards this way, start with Justina. And again, tell us a little bit about yourself. Please tell us about that first job.
Oh, wow. Hello, everybody. So good to be here. Justina Saleh, Managing Director, Innovation Solutions for Burning Glass Institute. And at the Institute, we are Zoom focused on finding opportunity. How do you really define opportunity that is equitable, that provides diversity for all realms of people? To do this, we have data from job openings, from profiles, so we actually know what happened to people after a degree, without a degree. We know their paths. So with that, we have so much opportunity to learn about what works and what doesn't. And it's through this data that you see that when people don't have a pathway, they don't have directions, it can be really dangerous. And for my first job, I sold timeshare. I was in sales with timeshare back in Egypt, and I really learned a lot of skills. Even though I am in research and data science, but just building on that, you will always need to convince someone, the persuasion skills, and really to make communications, to connect with people. That's really, really important for a data scientist, I think. So that's my first job. Sylvia.
Hi, Sylvia Wood. I am the AP Computer Science teacher and cybersecurity teacher at St. Dominic Savio, as Greg said. I have the pleasure of taking my students through some very interesting processes that I believe a lot of them use either to reinforce their thought about becoming a cyber or computer science major, or debunking that idea, and they're like, let's try something else, which is exactly what we want them to do. My first job, coincidentally, was at a data center. When I was in high school, I was actually key punching punch cards. Yes, I'm dating myself. And I had no idea that that's exactly what I was doing. There was just this mesmerizing machine behind a glass wall on an elevated surface, which was the mainframe. Did I know that was a mainframe? No, my job was to sit at the desk, read the numbers that were on payroll sheets, punch the cards. The stack was being created over here on the side. And lo and behold, many years later, I'm still kind of doing the same thing, except now we don't have the punch cards. But did I think at that time that, X number of years down the road, I would be a computer science teacher? Definitely not. My path at that time was just to help out with some extra money at home, and this was better than flipping burgers at McDonald's, so that's what I was doing.
Well, Greg, I have to say, I've not been asked this question, and there's a story I'm about to tell no one's ever heard, so this will be fun. And it's a weird story. So I'm gonna start with the story.
Weird is okay.
I know it, and then I'll get into it'll make sense then why I do what I do. So now you're unpacking the whole thing. This is great. So back in the day, for some of our younger generation, when you had a camera, you had to actually get your film developed, right?
Yeah.
Remember that? This is ancient history, isn't it? I mean, I saw a history book. It was moldy, right? Pages falling out. Yeah, and it talks about that. And there was a period of time where there was a little tiny box house inside our malls in the parking lot. And it was like a photomat type place. And you would drive up and you would drop off your film, and then you'd come back later and pick it up. And that's where I worked, inside this little tiny hut handling the film. Now, that's an odd story. But what happened was I was at a 2-year college. That's where I started, in a 2-year college. I'm a big fan of the 2-year college systems before I went off to the 4-year. And in my last semester, I had a class in biology, and you had to do some kind of community project. And so given my discount, what I did was a photo essay of the road in the mountains where I live, up in Northern California. And it's called Redwood Gulch Road, which is a cute name, except for all the trash that's been left in all of the little nooks. It was disgusting. And so I did a whole photo essay of this whole thing, built it up, sent it to we had to do something. It was for ecology, do something. So I sent it to our elected officials. And honestly, I'm getting ready, I'm packed, I'm getting in the car, and I get a call from an elected official saying, hey, we got your thing, I want you to know we're gonna get on this. I'm like, okay, whatever. I go off to college, I come back, the road is completely cleaned. There's new laws set up that say, here's the fine. And this was we don't talk about how long ago, but it was well, we know it was ancient history, but that road has been clean ever since. So this is the problem everyone who knows me has. I do believe we can have an impact.
Yes.
Right? They go, yeah, well, you can't just, unfortunately, I have an experience that says we can. And then by going into becoming a professor, it was told me this is the powerful place you can be, because no one can fire you for having those ideas. They may not invite you back, but they don't, right? When I work with the school system, they can say, Scott, we're done with you, but I still have a job and I can keep pushing. And that's been my career trajectory ever since. So, in creating this Coalition for Career Development Center was at another level of trying to say, okay, we've got some things that we know are working. We need business and industry to join us now in making career readiness a major priority throughout all of education. And the aim is now that this destination, which we know is completely gray and uncertain, but we do want social mobility. We do want youth to have choice. We want them to be happy. And so that's what we're focusing on, is trying to help you build that capacity so when those opportunities come up, they can take advantage of them. So that's my long-winded story, but yeah.
Well, thank you, Scott. And for our audience, we're going to ask you to stay for the rest of the panel.
Okay, good. I'm not getting kicked out just yet. We'll see. You got time. You got time. It's okay.
Maybe after the first question, but we'll see. So let me start with you, because you talked about the career development. You talked about business industry. We started off in the opening talking about pathways for students and where things would be of value for them. So if you could unpack a little bit how the different pathways for students and making sure that a path is right for them, what advice would you have for us in that area?
Yeah, thank you. I think what's exciting is that we're finally changing our language. So instead of using the word career, let's talk about pathway. Instead of saying career ready, we're talking about future ready. It's like, what do I need to be ready for these opportunities? And I think when I think of the pathways we as adults are developing, I call them structures. We're building structures, structured learning opportunities. You can call it connected learning, that's great. But the challenge we have is that we haven't explained to youth and their families the relevance of those pathways, right? And those pathways are relevant because they're teaching tangible, durable skills. We use, again, new language, durable skills that are transferable across a huge range of opportunities. So what we're focusing on now is building capacity. We can design learning environments that build positive youth development, helps them see that they have talent, helps them understand how to navigate. But the pathway itself is not the issue, is not what we're doing. We're building that capacity now for this individual to begin navigating. And that's where something like the Big Future comes in, because that's the technology we need to know. Where do I go when I have an idea? How do I explore? What do I do next, right? But we've got to stop focusing on destination and the right choice and the next. It's movement. Bandura talked about this in self-efficacy. He said that, you can have all the confidence in the world and you're going to be proactive and that's great, but at the end of the day, where you end up, it's probably due to fortuitous circumstances, chance events. But how do those chance events occur? They occur because you're moving, because you're engaged and you're interested, and that's what we're missing right now in today's youth. They're sitting quietly. What these pathway models are going to do is they're going to create active individuals that are actually out there seeing what they can do and their potential, and they're connecting with caring, encouraging adults that are inspiring, that are going to help them think about it. And that's the fortuitous events. Think about yourself in these great possibilities.
So we're asking students to think about themselves differently, what they want to do. Movement, I think, is so very important. Sylvia, you work with students. You talked about actually the work in your school. And as we think about movement, right, we'll build on what Scott's talking about. How do your students see themselves? And as they see themselves, what are the things that they're learning through your courses as they look at the world of today or the world of the future?
Well, I've been fortunate enough, and again, fortuitous kind of events have somehow led me to be one of the lab teachers this year for Career Kickstart. So that in itself was something that really interested me, because I liked the premise of giving students meaningful experiences to really form their understanding of what a future in this industry might look like, without actually pinpointing, oh, you're going to do this, or you're going to do that, or you're going to do this. It's like, let's kind of explore together what the possibilities might be. So, and that's what students, I hear them tell me, it's that answering that, when will I ever use this in my life? Mm-hmm. And answering that question for them, or helping them answer that question. It's like, I also sponsor our robotics team, which I've heard more than one student tell me, I had no idea that when I was sitting in math class that I was going to use this to figure out how to get that robot from point A to point B so that I could meet this challenge. Or I didn't know that my physics class was going to play a part in this, because I had to figure out how to get the robot to project this thing from this point to this point, and I have to figure out when it's going to start descending, and all these fun things that it's just like light moments for them. So all those experiences, I think, are really informing them as to their likes and dislikes and what a future might look like for them. So that, again, I see a thread, right? Likes, dislikes, students really moving, and then making those connections. Before we get into research a little bit, one of the things I'd like to ask for any of you to really weigh in on, and that is, as you're seeing students navigate and move forward, right, there's always the concern. And you talked about your students saying, I didn't see this connection. What are some of the concerns that students that any of you all are working with express that they might be experiencing as they're navigating? It could be about
no one's telling me about this, or this is what I'm concerned about with the future. What are you seeing as we're navigating students really finding themselves? What are their concerns?
I can start, like we're seeing this very much even in the data, that is this pathway worth it? And should everybody go in this pathway? And if I use your own analogy, right? If you're here at the Hilton and you want to go to a restaurant that is half a mile away, imagine a navigator say, you need to take a flight, right? So really that you adapt that pathway to where you are now and how fast you want to get there, right? If I am going to New Jersey and let's take a walk, that will be a little much. So just the meaning of that pathway and what it takes to do that, and that you're not going to be stuck. And that the outcomes, even though the outcomes show that a lot of 1 in 2 people will end up underemployed and in huge debt, right? So a lot of them are saying, well, is college worth it? But does it have to be a 4-year degree and then a career? I think more and more people are being aware that there are other ways to get to your destination without but very little guidance to that. So I think that is a big concern that we're starting to see very much in the data.
I think along with educating or guiding our students on a pathway, I think we also have to include their parents. I think a lot of my students, that's when we have one-on-ones, it's like, my mom really wants me to be a doctor, or my dad is an engineer and I'm supposed to be an engineer. And I think having a way to have conversations with those parents or pointing them to the right resources and getting them to see the potential in their children and helping nourishing what really inspires them and helping them find a pathway that makes them feel like they're adding to society in a meaningful way, or in a career where they wake up every morning and say, oh, I get to go do this today, not I have to go do this today. I think that it makes them more successful in their chosen pathway, and also, I think, informs the parents as to the strengths and weaknesses of their children.
Yeah, I echo that as well. I think for me, I want to change the pedagogy. I want to change it from we're telling students answers to helping them discover. Yeah. They're a lot smarter than we are. They have so much more understanding of the world, and yet when we get into a classroom, it's like all that's irrelevant, right? We got to build off of that. They know how to do this, and so like a quick story then.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of work on the individualized career plans, which nationally get called by many different names. Texas, they call it personalized learning plan. And I help design the policies as well as the process and the activities and the scope and sequence, and helping organizations adopt that. But what we're doing is we're helping them discover themselves, their talent, through self-exploration, and then career to say, well, where does this talent go? I'm not answering it. We're creating opportunities for them to discover it. Guess what happens when they discover something exciting? How do I get there? Oh, I got to take this math. So the relevance is in the process of their discovery, right? Not coming out of it from us telling them. Because if that worked, we wouldn't have the problems we have today. And I've got a teenager at home, a couple of them now, and it's never worked giving advice, right? They have to discover it in that way. So we're creating these learning environments where they discover it, and now they start the planning towards that. So quick example of that. So a young woman in Sheboygan, Wisconsin was, not doing much in school, disconnected, not seeing it happening until all of a sudden there was this health science pathway was introduced. And they went, whoa, this looks good. Because they knew the tools, how to use these technology tools, and had an idea of who they were, they went in and saw, I could go, and from my 10th grade, summertime, getting ready for 11th, I can go to my local two-year college and become a dietitian aide. I just need to get this certification, which they did. And when they get in the hospital, they go, wow, how cool is all this? What do I need to do? Math and science. Came back to school, started taking all the advanced math and science classes. And even though the GPA only, after 2 years, the GPA wasn't huge, but that letter that they wrote for college got a 4-year scholarship in nursing, right? So once they know what they need to do, and we have to bring parents along the way, because 4-year isn't the only pathway. We've got military, we've got 2-year college, we've got starting at work where they're going to pay and help you get the certifications that going, right? We have to help parents recognize it's okay. These are great pathways to social mobility. Let's let the child start to navigate through. They're going to be living to 100 years old. They're not making the right decisions at 17, right? So we need to build those tools, but we have to change it. So we're not giving them answers. We're giving them opportunities to discover.
Thank you for that. And I think what you all are really talking about is relevance, right, for students. If there's no relevance, why am I doing this? And for the young lady, she saw connections, and everything that she was learning in school or needed to learn became very relevant because it was connected to somewhere that she wanted to go. Again, that GPS. Justina, so you do a lot in connecting with careers to data and innovation. I'm sure people are like, what does that really mean? But also, based on that, what does it really require to make a meaningful connection with a career option? So we've been talking a little bit about that, but what does your data and innovation really talk to and speak to in that area?
Good. I'm going to start with my personal story, and probably that is what made me obsessed about careers and opportunities and how to find a way to navigate them. I'm originally from Egypt, and I went to a very expensive school that was way out of my league. You know, my dad is a professor, like middle income. And so at the time I went to this college, and like I am counting every credit, every little credit in the semester, how much it will cost me and how should I use that last credit. And I became obsessed with reading the course catalog every single day. That is my night reading, right? Because I want so many things, right? So the entire family, in my entire family are engineers. Math is our thing, right? So math is our thing. It means I either go to engineering or computer science. And I did that, right? And in the middle of my coursework, I said, I am not going to spend the rest of my life looking for the missing semicolon, right? So I know that I want to study people, but I know I have these very, very strong quantitative skills. And I know that I don't want to study buildings, but I want to study connections. And with that, I took that, and I then went into economics. And it all dawned on me that actually there's so many ways. There's not one starting point to a destination, and there's not one end point from any starting point. That those connections, you can make them out of anything, right? And with that obsessiveness with the course catalog, I started stacking. I know that I want to be a data scientist, but I know that I wanted to be in economics, and I want to study people, right? And I want to make it a little easier for someone else to stack their competencies, right? And so what we see is that in the data, we know where people end up. And sometimes they get really good guidance, and you see that they set off and really do it and really keep continuing on a pathway that fulfills their passion, and many others don't because math means engineering, right? And data science means a lot of computer science and semicolons, right? By the way, I do spend 90% of my life looking for the missing semicolon, for the record. So that's a curse that followed me, but I do it to find a pathway. So, you know, in the data we see, here are the skill sets, here's their major, here's what they learned, and here are the outcomes. And yes, you can come out of a history major and go into data science, and you can come out of sociology and become the best marketing person. All these pathways happen, but they happen with a little too much serendipity and very little directions. So that is, you know, and it costs.
Yeah. So one of the things that is really coming to my mind as you're talking about that, right? You're poring over the course catalog, right? Which some might say, wow. But what it caused me to think about is students in high school don't really have the options when they're looking at the course catalog. This is what you're going to take. Why do I have to take this? Because you did. You needed to graduate. It's not about you need this for your future. And so one of the things that I really think we need to really look at is what needs to change in order to meet the moment, right? You talked about navigation and movement, Scott, right? And movement is not linear for every student. And so the question I would ask you all, again, open question, what needs to change? Because we fit into, right, if I went back to my high school and I look at the master schedule, it's very similar to the master schedule that I had. I didn't think it was helping me to do anything. What happened to me was I just want a better life. And I knew what I was interested in, but it had nothing to do with what I was doing each and every day in school. And for me, it was boring. But I knew I had to go every day, but it didn't connect to my future. My future seemed like it was disconnected from school. School was just the thing I needed to get done. What needs to change? Any of you? Scott, you're looking with a big smile. You're like,
big smile.
Let me get in?
You're
Go for it.
things up. So, I've got a little boy at home who is phenomenal, but can't sit in a classroom for lots of reasons. But through Kerbal Space Program can tell you everything about physics. But they're letting him know that unless you sit in my class, you can't pass physics, right? He knows the physics. Test him. So I think part of the answer is we have to go to more of a, what are the competencies you need to demonstrate? Not the seat time, not the pathway. So Beatles fans, am I really getting, oh good, where's a few? We'll just talk, just us. So Day in the Life, one of the greatest songs. Paul McCartney brings all these musicians in and says, look, you got this much time. You can start anywhere you want, but as you go up those octaves, I want you to end right here. And it sounds craziness, but at the end, they all get there. That's how education needs to be. We need to basically point out, these are the skills you need. You can tell us, you have all the space in the world. And I do this in my own college classes. You got another way you want to show me you know the material? I had students that were designing games to talk about the complex career design strategies we're talking about. I had them doing podcasts. I had them all this stuff because show me you know it. I don't want to tell you how. I want you to do it in something that's about you, for you, and can support you, right? And so we get to that competency level, and we can do that in our K-12 schools, right? Changes everything. And now with everybody getting all concerned about the finances and we need more math or this, there's a lot of pathways that we can learn this math and things like that. So
Reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. We all need to go on a little journey to find I just need courage. And I think that's what we need to do what you're talking about is a little courage, right? It will take stepping out and doing things a little bit differently. Others?
Similar to this, I think we need to introduce, as early as junior and high school students to careers very, very early. And it is, they know engineer, lawyer, doctor. But there's so many out there. So imagine if I knew that I can be, an analytics person early on. That would change the whole gamut, that I don't have to give up my quantitative skills and I don't have to give up my people skills, right? So what needs to change is that you have sort of a navigator that tells you, all right, I need to get gas, or now I really need to go to this destination for a conference. And that needs to be adaptable. You can't have it just says, here you sat, go. No, because I change, because I would take a course and add some skills. And now I'm really, really interested in this cause, in this path, in this skill, right? So an ability to have sort of a guide to where you are, but see what are the competencies, right? I really like to be in sociology, but I'm very interested in marketing. Can I be both? Yes. And showing people that you can, that there is a way to gain those competencies and guide them to the coursework. 50% of the coursework are electives. And even though they have to take, these are required courses, all this flexibility, it can make or break a student. But what is really needed is the directions.
Back to the GPS.
I know.
Well, still being in the high school, and yes, understanding that, the pathways haven't changed a whole lot. I'm proud that at the school I'm at, granted we are private and have more autonomy than the public schools do, both our math and science teachers use standards-based grading. They don't restrict the students to certain things that they are, I guess, forced through. It's a little bit more open, and it's like, if you can show me, in this manner that you understand these concepts, there's your grade. You're done. Let's move on to the next one. In my classes, I do a lot of project-based learning, which I know in some areas of this country that's considered a 3-letter, 4-letter word, whatever you want to call it. It's come and gone and come and gone, and but in my classes, those projects are very open-ended. I'm like, here are the competencies I want you to show me. You understand how you do it. It's up to you. If you want make a TikTok video and talk about this, go for it. If you want to do an infographic, go old school and go on Canva and do that, that works too. If you want to make a game and show me that you understand this, awesome. It's like the medium that you picked. And if you just want to talk to me one-on-one and give me an oral report, I'll take that too. So it's giving them that flexibility, the students that flexibility to show me, I understand this concept and here's how I see it. And then giving them that nurturing feedback to either say, that's excellent, good job, let's move on to the next one, or let's think about this part and let's work on, why you see it that way and how I can help you understand something that you're just not quite there.
So Sylvia, thank you for that. You talked about projects, you talked about your students, like there's multiple ways that they can show competency. You talked about that too, Scott, in your responses. What are students doing so there's a two-part question. In the Career Kickstart cybersecurity class, like how's that different from what may have been happening before? And then what would you say to someone who's like, yeah, we can't do that. Our schedule's not signed up it's not that way. We have no flexibility. It's already locked. All the different excuses. How should one think about like opening up to these additional opportunities that connect to students in careers and pathways?
Well, in the Career Kickstart, the lab year, so it's probably a little bit more flexible than, once we hit pilot next year. I wouldn't say more flexible. As far as we're fleshing out all the lessons, so that gives us a little bit more autonomy as to what direction we point the students to. I think the most interesting thing we've done so far this year is make a patch cable. So it's computer networking. So we take it, all levels from the physical to the virtual. And so I think that was probably the most difficult task for most of my young men. The young ladies in my class were like, done, here's my cable, it works. And the boys are like, I can't get this little wire to this thing, it's just not working. They were almost in tears. But they got through it, they persevered. And it wasn't, for me, it wasn't like, do you have a working wire? It's like, it's giving them the understanding that, yes, there is someone out there that's actually doing this. Now, is it your career? Maybe not. But, and maybe it is your career. Maybe this is, it sparks something in you that you might want to do down the road. But it just gave them that experience in the understanding, yes, I need this, these wires are on all these buildings and they're sending information from point A to point B, and this is what it looks like, this is what it feels like. And now that I've experienced it, I can move on. And it just, to me, I think it was a fulfilling activity for them because I think it opened a lot of their eyes as to what it what it takes for two computers to communicate to each other.
And they're seeing connections with the world.
Exactly.
And so that's truly, it's inspiring, because when you see the connection to the world, you're not just doing work for the sake of doing work, right?
Correct.
And those things are important. What would you say to someone who's like, how should we think about fitting something like this into our current schedule that is already jam-packed?
Well, what we did was, in Texas, we have a course called Foundations of Cybersecurity, so we just replaced that course. So if you have an existing course in your schedule and you would like to try the Career Kickstart course, that would be my suggestion. Or you can look at, once it's published, just pull pieces of the course itself and have your students maybe try a lesson or two. The networking course focuses, for those of you that are in the cyber world, on the OSI model. So there's different activities on all levels that you can maybe pick one or two and try it with one of your classes. One that my students are doing right now is cyber.org has a free cyber range, which is amazing, because that means that your students have a sandbox to play in and you don't have to actually get them out on the internet to mess up with your systems. So IT people at schools really love the sandboxes. So they're right now working on a couple of labs in cyber.org's sandbox on Wireshark, and working on TCP, which is how two computers communicate with each other. So they get those experiences. They see, do I like working with these type of apps? Is it boring? Is it interesting? What is it? So just giving them those little experiences sometimes will spark something that might send them on a pathway that they enjoy, kind of like your person walking in and saying, oh, the hospital, this is interesting. So just giving them those experiences, will hopefully help them kind of find a path that is of their interest.
Very interesting. And so, we've got pathways, we've got students really thinking about like lights that turn on, things that connect. What I'd like to do is, Justine, I want to go to the research a little bit, because there are times when skills do not connect to the aspirations that students might have. What happens when, again, those skills do not align? And what advice would you give for anyone that's working with students or working with people when skills, again, do not line up with aspirations?
So I would double click a little bit on aspirations and the skills, on that disconnect, right? I think our framework is every job is a box. And it's a box with those, here are the sides of the box. And every person is also a box. And we forget that, a job is so diverse that in any job, you will need a little dose of quantitative, a little dose of technical, a little dose of creative. Every job can bring in your all, right? There are so many. And I think about myself, that I endured searching for the semicolon for so many years, because, again, my why, I could find my why in that semicolon, right? And so with that, can we just show that, finance doesn't mean math, and that engineering is not just, math, that you can build communities and you can bring people together. So that is the first thing, that there's nothing is monolithic, and everything really has so many edges and nodes to them. But then the other thing is, okay, you were going to a restaurant through your navigator, and the restaurant, it's closed. Or you looked at the menus no, that's not what I want. What do? You look for another another restaurant, or you look for a different destination. So that's another thing, that on my way, even though it looked like I reached a wrong destination, or this is not what I wanted, how do you see the skills and the competencies you acquired, even in what looks like a detour, in getting somewhere else. So it's not just directions that we want it to be adaptable directions that you are building on competencies, and as you're going along the way, you are zooming in, but then adding and adding steps towards yet another direction and yet another direction, without again oversimplifying either myself. I am not only my quantitative skills. I am a lot more. And my job is not only a data scientist. It's unlocking opportunity. That is the norm, that every job, who doesn't need creative skills in their job? Who doesn't need, most jobs will require a little bit of everything. So, we want to introduce jobs holistically, not as boxes. I think is very important.
Very helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah, I want to jump on that too. I have just a small different take on it, but exactly aligned with what you're describing. So let's think of occupations as needing, or the individuals thinking about those pathways takes three components. The capacity to aspire, we know, is huge, and our youth don't have that naturally. So we've got to help them, especially our youth of color, our youth with disabilities. They need to start seeing something beyond that they can get there, and they need role models to really encourage that. And then your question was, but what if they're aspiring to something they don't know how to do? Well, let's talk about the two skills. One is human skills. Those are the durable skills. That's a lot. They got those. The rest of it can be trained. So the question is, are there skills that are malleable, that are trainable, that they can gain? And a lot of businesses are saying, I'll help you get the skills that you need, the technical skills. But I need someone who can talk with people. I need someone who can work with people. And our youth, our schools have been doing a great job. That's what project-based learning does, right? It helps you learn how to work with others, how to communicate, how to facilitate, how to have leadership. But the one big key theme is what you were going at, Justina, which is adaptability. My colleagues want to talk so much about the stability of work and how there's a box here we can define and we can measure. That box keeps changing. In fact, it's exploded. What happens in a job? I mean, you may get there and realize, wow, but my web skills is what got me the job, even though I was in a technical thing, because it was the additional things I bring to the table. So we really want to just be building capacity and expanding that kind of entrepreneurial attitude, that I'm gaining a range of skills to increase employability, but I have the ability now to connect to those learning opportunities. And today with technology, those learning opportunities are everywhere. Right? We can get those, but the hard part is, what are those things I should be going towards? And we need business at the table, talking with youth, talking with families. And what we found is when that happens, when they graduate, they're actually in jobs that align very closely with the skills that were needed, because they've had these conversations and mentoring. And the mentoring is a major piece to this whole thing.
So you're talking about skills that students may have that are not all on the academic side specifically, right? And one of the things that often occurs, and so I really want you to think about this and help our audience, and I'll give this example from myself. I'm at my senior banquet, got a scholarship to a school, and a person says to me, that might not be right for you. Right? Oh dear. I say, my parents haven't gone there. Yeah, that person's right. So this fear sets in, right? And fear, we know, can paralyze. Then you've got, just different things that happen. And as adults, we shape, oftentimes, what kids believe others believe they can do. And so when you're talking about the box moves, they have these skills, how do we encourage kids without discouraging kids? Because schools are often set up, you got a C-, you got a D. Well, we're gonna need to talk to your parents. And so kids walk away with, I'm not very good at anything, but they're so good at so many things. What advice would you have for people on how we help kids navigate?
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I was just talking with a group of industry people in semiconductors, and they're like, well, where are we gonna find these math and science and all this? And I said, you're gonna find it in Minecraft. They're talented. They know how to do this. It may not show up on a grade, but they know how to do this, right? And so you're right. And we have to have mentoring certification. so that our adults can do this in a way that is encouraging and not discouraging. I've got a funny story though, I just have to, because I just love this part. My advisor said, similarly, psychology, do you know how many psychologists are driving taxis? And what I say is, I've had that all the way through my career. Oh, you're not gonna be able to, oh, you're not. We have to be good at not listening to. Once we have that aspiration, and Malcolm X talked about that, once youth have a plan of what they want, watch out, they're gonna blast through. And that's identity, that's building a sense that yes, I can, and we build that by having these active learning opportunities and having mentors that really help them believe in themselves. And then we just have to create the environment to let them go try it out. And in trying it out, they'll navigate, they'll find other things, it's great, but they're moving forward. And every time they're learning something new that becomes part of their toolkit.
Movement.
Movement, yes. So something that I borrowed, I won't say stole, I borrowed from another teacher, and I thought it was just like, when I heard about it, I'm like, whoa, I should have been doing this, for years. But anyway, so I've now adopted it. I do something with my students to kind of help them explore careers in all my classes, where I walk them through an identity map. So they make an identity map of themselves first. And then I said, is there someone that inspires you? And for me, it's, someone, someone in cyber or someone in computer science, or sometimes, I just let them, someone that's inspired you in the technical field or the STEM field, make their identity map. Now compare the two and make me a presentation of what you see is the same and what you see is different, and what questions might arise from that, and how you might be able to find answers that might point you in the right direction. So let's build a GPS of your own and see where it takes you. And that's an easy thing you can adopt in any subject area. Mathematicians, poets, famous scientists. You can adapt it to any subject matter and just help your students, your children, explore.
And love that. And I think from the story that, how many psychologists drive a taxi, I think we often confuse, what's a normal path? Psychology major will be a psychologist, right? To what is a probable path? There are not enough psychologists in demand, so psychologists will drive a taxi, which we see in a lot of our outcomes, right? But we forget the possible, right? And a lot end up as taxi drivers because they didn't have a navigation, right? They kept going and going where the wind takes them, right? And when that first job, when that first journey begins and they are off track, it is really costly. It really takes a lot of intentionality to come back to the path. But from very early on, if you introduce possibilities, that is that what can I do with the competencies I learned? That is very powerful. And what we see maximize and optimize these possibilities is what I call power skills, the foundational skills, adaptability, the ability to communicate, critical thinking. These, if only we are able to show students that power, that project that they had to do teamwork in, and they had to really understand from an employer or from, in a project that there is this problem and they solved it. They solved it through a marketing kit. They solved it through a program, building a network. They are solving it. How can we show these possibilities and what come with them? I think is really, really important. And what makes or breaks the outcome of a program is really those foundational, those power skills, not the technical skills.
Can I just jump on that?
Yeah.
So I've been a fan of Burning Glass for a long time, and so and this is about Burning Glass experience. So when the Coalition for Career Development Center was being founded, Leo Reddy is one of the big founders and has a great history and an amazing person. And every time we would get together, hey Scott, I was looking in the paper for philosophy jobs and can't see any yet. Not seeing any. And so I go to my Burning Glass contact and I said, what do I say? And just, you tell them with that graphics arts certification, they're going to be worth a lot of money. Exactly. And so that is exactly what it is. It's like the skills you're getting in these majors in these different areas, they're transferable in so many ways. It's about where you're going and then what are the additional skills that'll get me there.
Exactly. My best hires were philosophy majors. I would actually go and hire for philosophy majors from a certain program because I know that I can teach them programming, but I can't teach them common sense and logic.
You all have been great. The last question I have for you is each of you, if there's anyone that's out in our audience, educator, caring adult, what advice would you give them on helping us, from your lens, help others create that GPS and that roadmap? What advice would you give them?
For me, the advice is, number one, do not underestimate the power of power skills, foundational skills. That is really, really critical. But also have that mentor that builds you up, that shows you possibilities, that constantly remind you that may be probable, but it doesn't have to be the only possibility. And that you see through either the data or through the eyes of good mentors that will not take you back because we haven't seen that happen, that they can open up those opportunities for youth. Power skills and mentorship, these are really critical.
Thank you.
For me, it would be listen. Listen to your children, listen to your students. They will tell you what they're interested in, and then encourage, foster those interests, and help them express themselves and be creative.
For me, I think we have to remind ourselves as parents that we weren't hired because of our grades. Okay? Not one person said, oh, can I see your grade? You got an A in math? Oh, we got to hire this one. They got an A in math. You're hired because of what you can do. And what we're doing to our youth today is we're saying, sorry, you can't have a future, right? Like this young boy, this young male in Singapore couldn't pass algebra. Sorry, you can't do it. Well, turned out now as a hacker is doing amazing things and has made it through. But that algebra stopped him initially until they saw the talent behind it. All of our youth have talent. Let's help them find that talent and really nurture that. And it's not just going to be in school. It's going to be in scouting. It's going to be in clubs. It's going to be in entrepreneurial things, right? They can start their own businesses. We're seeing that happening. So we have to really capture that essence and lean into what they're doing naturally and wonder what those skills are. And as parents, we can do some research on that, but we want our youth to discover it too.
Well, thank you all so very much for your time today. Scott, I would always invite you back. You've been great. You all have been great as well. I would share with you all that, again, the College Board is focused on clearing a path for all students to own their future. There's over 15 million students that visit Big Future each year to discover themselves, to discover a path that's right for them. And as you heard from our panelists, we really want to make sure that we are nurturing, that we are supportive, and that we are guiding our students, because there are multiple pathways, and we just want to help them with the GPS to help them to navigate. Thank you so much. Have a great morning.